Hello and welcome to another episode of DyerTimes. I'm your host, David Dyer, and today is a day I've been waiting for 3 or 4 months now at least. If you recall, a few months ago, we actually went down to Chattanooga, Tennessee and took a look at RMJ Tactical Shop. They are the makers of the world's finest tactical Tomahawk, and I got mine in the mail today. So you guys are going to get the extreme privilege of watching the unboxing of that video. And we're going to do the one thing that we didn't get to do in that video, which was throw it, putting this thing down range. So if you want to take a look at that video, you can click right here on the RMJ Tactical box and get a refresher. Until then, I'll see you over at the bench and let's check this thing out. All right, so here we are with the RMJ Tactical unboxing. Now, as you saw earlier, I slid the mailing sheath off of this, which leaves us with this box, one piece of tape, and we're open. Inside you find quite a bit of eggshell packing, which is nice because it keeps everything where it should be. Now I ordered the Shrike Tactical Tomahawk with the shoulder rig bottom eject scabbard. Now in addition to the Tomahawk itself, in the box you have an RMJ Tactical sticker and this fantastic disclaimer with instructions on how to use your scabbard and your invoice. Now I will say I'm not going to rob you of the joy of reading this fantastic disclaimer. It's hilarious and very true. So on that note, the Tomahawk, you should know before you ever take it out of the scabbard, is extremely sharp. It comes that way. I know that seems redundant to say, hey, the Tomahawk is sharp, but you will get cut with this. It's a matter of time. And that brings me to the point with the box. There should be one more thing in there, and it should be a full-size medical kit with sutures. You always want to practice safe Tomahawk use, but if you've never fooled with a Tomahawk that has a sharpened beard, which is this portion right here, it's going to cut you at some point. Now, I used to throw Tomahawks competitively, and I don't remember ever getting cut. But this thing, it puts a whole new level on sharp edges. So the key here is to keep the hard edges from the soft things, if you can. Now, the Tomahawk itself, I know we took a pretty close look at it in the RMJ Tactical video I did where we went down and visited the shop. But just a few points about this Tomahawk. It actually has your production date and the number, so all the Tomahawks are numbered. So I actually ended up with just under number 4,000. And then, of course, if you're a soldier, they'll do engraving. And this one they did DyerTimes YouTube channel. And then one of my favorite sayings, if you recognize this, put it in the comments below. So very awesome. And then one of the things we also didn't show in that video was this point here. You know, if there's somebody sitting in the car and you don't want to break a window with the spike or the end for fear of hitting them, you can use this butt cap right here to pop the window out as well. Now inside of that, which you saw in the last video, is this fantastic sharpening stone that comes with the Tomahawk. Now this is of course for sharpening, and if you want to see how that's done, again I'm going to refer to the other video. What I really like about this is if you put this in here, it's got a little sponginess to it, so when you put it the cap in, it's held snugly in place by what seems to be a piece of rubber in there, and it doesn't, when you're using it, it doesn't bounce around, it doesn't cause you any problems. Now, another YouTuber actually pointed out to me in one of my other videos that you can take and put a fire starting rod. Now, this is a blast match, which is a pretty neat device that can light pretty easily. Well, you can use the back of a knife or the edge of the Tomahawk to do this as well, but you can take this apart and actually insert this in there instead of your sharpening stone. You can see they're about the same diameter, so it gives you the ability to make fire, although it takes your ability to sharpen the Tomahawk away. So it's just a neat idea that you can switch that out if that's something that you want to do. I thought it was pretty cool myself. Now, like I said, the one thing we didn't get to do with this was throw it. It was just too rainy of a day the last time. So I actually have here with me today Tuesday Taylor, which has her own YouTube channel, which we'll put down here in the bottom comments, and you can check that out, her link to everything. So I'm going to go over and show her how to throw a Tomahawk, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So let's get this thing over there and see what we can do. So here we have a pretty standard Tomahawk target. Usually I make these out of a nice soft wood instead of a hard wood. Makes it a whole lot easier to throw into. But nice big heavy log, nice big heavy legs, something to take the force of that impact. And also you want to throw into the face of the log instead of the side of a log or the side of a tree. Now, not saying that you can't throw into those, it makes it a whole lot easier for a beginner to actually get comfortable with and stick tomahawks and understand the techniques involved. So actually, I have a beginner here with me today, Miss Tuesday Taylor. And if I'm not mistaken, this is your first day learning to throw tomahawks.
Yes, and I'm extremely excited.
And we're gonna have a great time, but before we do that, I actually wanna talk about some of the different types of tomahawks and some of the safety involved with, sharp flying objects, which are dangerous. So there are actually 3 types of tomahawks as far as materials and construction, and that is a machined hawk, a cast hawk, and a forged hawk. Now these are actually both forged, and you could argue almost all day about what's better and what's not. Typically, I don't really like cast tomahawks. Those were made Revolutionary wartime period out of iron and things like that. And there's a much better ways to make them these days. So much like the RMJ Tactical Tomahawk, which is pretty amazing, it's actually a forged tomahawk, and you can actually see some of the slag from the forging process in the metal, which I think gives it a lot of character. And then what's really unique is it's not just forged, but it's also machined. So you get these fantastic and dynamic angles, which really give you that cutting power and that the uniqueness to this tomahawk. Now, we were talking about, there are 3 types of materials, which we just talked about, but there's also 3 kind of types of hawks. You have your regular Iroquois style hawk, which is what doesn't have really anything across the back strap. It's just a normal tomahawk. And then you've got what they call a poled hawk. Now, a poled hawk is excellent. I really like him because it's more of a camping type of hawk. It actually has a square back or a hammering surface, and that's called a poled hawk. And these throw just as well as any other tomahawk. I think for outdoorsmen, these are probably one of the more useful. And then, of course, lastly, the spiked tomahawk. And RMJ actually sells the ones with the hammers on the end, but I really like the spikes. They're pretty useful for digging or really anything you want to get into, because the tomahawk really is that universal tool. But typically the spiked tomahawks were meant for fighting, and this is also kind of the standard issue for most special forces units and things like that order these. They're all over the world today. So that's kind of an overview of the tomahawks, but instead of having her throw this one first, because it's really intimidating, very sharp, and that whole throwing, you don't want that. So what we're going to do today is actually throw one of these that doesn't have anything on the back, and you'll notice it's not really sharp at all. Not suggesting you do that to a tomahawk, but you can actually see it's almost a flat edge there. Now that's going to stick in this log, but it's not going to so much stick in you. Now, of course, you want to make sure that you have a nice open space behind you, so there's nobody back here, kids moving around through the woods or whatever. So you have a safe area. I actually like to mark mine off so people don't just wander through where I'm throwing tomahawk. And then we're ready to go. So let's go try it out.
I'm excited.
Awesome. Okay, so in my book, there are 3 steps to the successful tomahawk thrower. 1 is distance, 2 is grip, and 3 is throwing. So really pretty basic. We start with distance. Now, it's a little bit different for everybody, and I'm sure that if you're seeing my video, you've probably seen other tomahawk throwing videos online, and everybody seems to have a different, like, take this pace and do this and measure this and do this. I find that you can do 2 things. You can either pretty much measure out 15 feet, or you could take 15 heel to toe steps, and then when you get to that point, mark that off and put your toe on that line. And that is going to be your pretty standard distance for your tomahawk throw. Because in that distance, your tomahawk is going to rotate 1 time. So we can look at some adjustments once we get those first couple throws as to far if you're too close or too far away. So all right, we are now at your distance, which is about 15 heel to toe steps, or any combination of how you want to measure that. about 15 feet. Again, like I said, the Tomahawk will rotate one time within that distance. And we have the distance, so now we're on to proper grip. And proper grip is at the very end. You want to make sure your hand is all the way down, not choked up. The Tomahawk handle, and there's a lot of physics that are involved here, is 19 to 19 and a half inches long. So that's what really gives it that forward momentum and that power when it hits. So when you're holding it, you notice it really just wants to fall forward, and we're really fortunate because it really wants to hit that target and really wants to be in that wood. Like, you can just feel holding it how it just wants to travel forward. So all we're gonna do is just help it on its way, just kind of guide it properly. So you got the proper grip, and then it comes down to the step 3, which is actually throwing it. And when you do that, you want to keep everything on the same plane. So everything on the same plane, all in one nice line. Now the really unique thing is this Tomahawk handle is in a teardrop shape. See, teardrop shape.
Mm-hmm.
So when you grip it, it really keeps the Tomahawk from turning in your hand. So as long as you can put your hand straight out, it's going to be pretty.
So it's
pretty
very.
straight.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's very important to have your form.
Yes, because if you are throwing and you turn it to the side, you can see.
You could cut your ear off.
I'm going to lose an ear or the back of my head. So you really want to make sure that you keep that. Now, and it's like I said, it's a pretty natural thing. You don't even really have to think about it. Although when you're starting, you really want to be aware of where the sharp end is.
Yes.
In relation to these soft things we talked about earlier.
Yes.
So when you actually throw, just imagine throwing a baseball. Really, just imagine throwing a baseball, because you're going to let go of the Tomahawk about the same place when you throw. So the grip, like I said, is just a normal grip like you pick anything up, but you do want to make sure your thumb is on the inside, because if you actually put your thumb on top, you're going to cause the Tomahawk to over-rotate. Now, I don't want to get too in the weeds about things like that today, because this is just a really basic thing. So I've actually got my mark, which is a little bit further away from hers. So everything nice and lined up. And I always take a step when I throw with the opposite foot. So it's merely just a step and a throw and into the target. So just like that. So I'm gonna hand it over to you, see what you can do.
I'm so excited.
Awesome. We're gonna just kind of let you practice around a little bit. You do have gloves on, which shouldn't affect this at all, as long as your grip is where it should be. It is a little chilly out today, so I don't blame you. So just make sure you have the proper grip, just like I showed you, and give it a few tries. Beautiful, well done, well done. It's just that easy. Like I said, that Tomahawk really, really wants to go on that piece of wood. And perfect distance, grip, throw. You can't ask for better.
That was awesome.
Excellent. All right, so let's actually practice a little bit more and talk about some of the things that can happen to you when you're throwing and the adjustments you can make to correct those things. All right, so one of the things we want to look at is how to properly remove the Tomahawk from the log. Now, that doesn't seem like it's all that difficult or all that involved, but for safety's sake, you want to make sure that if you are touching the target, it's on the outside. So here or here, never on the face, because as you're pulling this out, it can remove fingertips, and you don't want that to happen. So you can steady the log on the outside, away from the blade area. Then you grab the very bottom and pull straight up. So give it that shot.
Okay. Just like this?
Just like that. Pull straight up. There you go.
Oh.
Now just pull down.
Oh.
There you go. It'll come right out. So yeah, up and down, and it should come right out. Now, the harder you throw, the deeper that'll go in there. So you can get an idea of how, just your style and what you're doing. But the key is just when you're pulling that out, to make sure your hand is not laying next to it, so you can't open your own finger right off. Bad news bears. All right. Okay, so something that we're beginning to notice is there is some head handle separation going on, and this is one of the things that you're going to encounter when you throw. Your head on your hawk is going to get loose. Now, to take care of this, you just turn it upside down and hammer it on something hard. I always like to keep this, a nice wooden block, so just on the ground, and you can take and in it goes, no problem. Now, one of the things that you're going to want to keep on hand for sure is an extra Tomahawk handle, maybe a few extra Tomahawk handles, because the more you throw, you're going to eventually break one of these. It's just the nature of the business. It's going to happen. And that is actually another unique thing about the RMJ Tactical Tomahawk, is there is no head handle separation. It's made out of one solid piece of steel, and you're just not going to break it. So
cool.
Unlike this, which is pretty excellent. So I'm going to hand that back to you and let you throw a little bit more. All right, so now that you had a little bit of chance to practice, you look like you're getting a whole lot more comfortable with it. Excellent. So what did you notice about when you were throwing?
With me, you got to keep your eye on the target. Like, you got it. For me, I had to keep an eye on the target. And it was very important, like, if I started off my feet, if they were wrong, then I already knew halfway in it.
So just that step.
Yes, you need to have that step and to make sure your arm is straight.
Yep.
And you kind of like follow through.
Just like throwing a ball.
Yeah, you got to follow through. And it's not so much watching your arm. It's like looking at the target, and then your follow through has to be right. And I think it's also the way you hold your hand.
Absolutely. Well, just like we were talking with the teardrop shape, making sure everything's nice and lined up.
It's that, and you can't stutter. I also noticed that whenever I thought about it too much, and instead of just letting it flow, and I doubted the power, it's not so much how hard, it's just your form.
True.
So that is what I noticed.
Well, now I will say, when you were throwing harder, what was some of the things you were noticing happening with the Tomahawk?
Well, it was turning too much.
So when it over rotates, it comes in and hits the target more tip first with the handle up like this. Now
it's not so like that.
There you go. So ideally, you want it to hit directly on. So if you're two things: if you're too far away, it's going to over rotate.
Okay.
Or if you're too close, it will actually under rotate and hit handle first. And this is what, just like those few times you noticed it knocked the handle out, you see just like that, it'll pop it out. And when that happens, that's when you run the risk of breaking your handle. So if you hit like this, it will snap the handle, or like this, sometimes it'll snap the handle. And it doesn't snap it completely off, it'll just splinter it a little bit, which is kind of annoying, but you just drop another one in there and you're good. So that definitely, as far as how close, it makes that huge difference as far as too far away, too close, good to go. But now that you are a little more comfortable, let's give it a go.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
Awesome, let's try it.
Okay.
All right, so throwing the RMJ Tactical Tomahawk, definitely learned a lot. One of those things, especially when approaching this Tomahawk as it sits, just like we did before, you want to pull straight up on it, but specifically with this one, because it has this nice long spike, you want to make sure you approach it from the side, so you're not walking directly up on it, because if you did that and tripped and stabbed yourself in the shoulder and or chest, I mean, it could kill you pretty quick. So just safety wise, you want to walk to either side to remove the Tomahawk. And of course, when you pull it out, don't be standing in front of it. Step off the side, pull here, so you don't end up with a face full of spike and or blade. Very unfortunate. So another thing that we learned, which was really interesting, was the back portion, this lanyard here, which for every single application of this Tomahawk that I can think of, you always want to put this on. That way, one, when you're using the Tomahawk, it doesn't get away from you, and the big thing is you're not doing this and it accidentally hits your buddy over there when you don't want to throw it. So, but what we did notice was if you try and throw the Tomahawk with this on there, it will actually wrap around your hand and could cause you some problems. So I would suggest removing this when you throw, and that way it doesn't do that. So what'd you think?
I thought it was awesome. I feel very empowered, but I learned some things.
Okay.
You have to be a little bit stronger with your follow through, and you have to maybe get closer. That's another thing.
Well, and honestly, and the reason you have to get closer is this Tomahawk is a little bit shorter than the one you were throwing. So the shorter the Tomahawk, the closer you have to be to the target.
But it's you just have to be a stronger follow through. You have to really, really focus and be stronger.
Okay, and mainly because it's a pretty heavy tool, so that makes good sense.
And I also didn't want to stick.
Well,
I mean, look at the wood; it chopped
and
it
that
up
was
pretty
actually,
good.
you could say, well, it didn't want to stick, and you threw it, And that's partially why we started with that other Tomahawk, is because I didn't really want you to get discouraged. This Tomahawk, one of the plus things, honestly, I look at it as a positive that it did not want to stick in this log, because the tool itself has these thick, heavy angles to it, which are very particular and precise. And if you chop through metal with it, I mean, it'll split metal like nobody's business. But in this wood, it actually kind of almost bounces out. But before it bounces out, it makes these devastating deep marks. And you can also throw, of course, the spike if you want to. And we were running into the same issue. It would hit perfectly and bounce out because of those dynamic angles. Which again, I look at as a plus, not as a con. So again, if you want to throw Tomahawk, I definitely recommend starting with, you know, kind of your standard Tomahawk, which you can get for around 20 or 30 bucks. And then once you get a little more advanced, a little throwing under your belt, you can step up to this and tackle some of the more challenging aspects of Tomahawk throwing.
I was really reluctant, about thinking that I could be able to do it. I was excited about doing it, but I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it.
Sure. Well,
but
if
I can.
If next time I'm not around, what are the 3 things you need to know about Tomahawk throwing?
Oh, distance.
Distance.
Your stance.
Grip.
And then how you follow through.
And then the throw. Yep. Those are the 3 basic things. And once you get those down, you can pretty much go from there.
And it's fun.
Absolutely. Well, Tuesday Taylor, thank you ever so much for joining me on my YouTube channel today. And of course, definitely check out her YouTube channel, which is down below, which is What's Real West Virginia. That's an awesome channel. She's actually going to be interviewing me on that a little bit later today, and that'll be up probably along with this video. And of course, if you want to check out more of what my channel has to offer, you can click here for the RMJ tactical video, where we look at the shop and you know, pretty much tear into a car. It's very awesome. Or you can click here for the Taser Strike Light, which is where we take the Taser Strike Light and learn some hand-to-hand self-defense. Or you can click here for some practical product, or some practical tactical demos. Practical tactical demos. I should use that. So definitely give those a look. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.